Yo, hell yeah. Wyatt begins in like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yo, welcome to Wyatt. And I'm your host, Wyatt O'Brien Evans. Grrr, woof, God damn it, woof, 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 woof. Hi, I said hi to all my YouTubers out there. If you like what you hear and if you like what you see, just click all of them subscribe buttons at the bottoms of all of your screens. And because I knows you loves me, I know you do, give me some likes, give me some likes, give me some likes. And because I always like to know what you are always thinking, you know what I'm saying? Send me some feedback. It's greatly appreciated. All right. Today's Wyatt shines the spotlight on winning wordsmith Troy Ford, y'all. He is the author of Lamb, a novel in snapshots, and he's also the publisher of Qstack, the influential LGBTQIA plus online platform. So all I can say is, let's do it. So without further ado, Wyatt, I said Wyatt, welcomes the polished and prolific Troy Ford. Now check this out, check this out, check this out. Mr. Ford is an editor. He's also the author of Lamb, a novel in snapshots, which is getting rave reviews. That's his new novel. And he's the publisher of two popular newsletters. One, Ford Knows Books, and Qstack, the influential LGBTQIA plus online platform. Talk at me, Troy. How the hell are ya?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, Wyatt. I'd love to be here.
Did you like that intro?
I did.
Well, in that case, I will be your hype man, and we can talk about that after the show.
Thank you.
Anyway, seriously though, man, thank you for taking the time out of your schedule rather, to appear on Wyatt. I greatly appreciate it. All right.
I'm so glad to be here.
Well, thank you, sir. Now, listen, I'm in Metro Washington, D.C. You're in Spain, right?
I am in Spain. Sitges, Spain is about half an hour down the coast from Barcelona. It's a little beach town with a big city festival schedule. We just had Fiesta Mayor with dragons spouting fire and fireworks in the sky and the giants, you know, the big puppet giant things that they walk around with.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic.
Wow. I want to trade locales with you, my friend. I'm telling you, because that is not going on here in Metro DC, but you know, that's for another show.
Maybe.
Anyway, my friend, I've been excited to do this interview, so we're going to jump right into it. Now, you state, and I quote, "As a creator and advocate, my mission is to give voice to queer people and issues by promoting their visibility through media projects and collaborations and through my own fiction and essays," end quote. Let's expound on that, please.
Well, I'd say the way I kind of got into that was with Qstack. Qstack is a directory, it's a platform, it's a community of newsletter writers and creators on Substack. So Substack is kind of my platform. I never really had a lot of luck with all the other social media platforms. I had some fun with Twitter for a while, and then it got real dark. And so when I started, looking at publishing my book and getting out there a little bit more and developing an author platform, Substack kind of jumped out at me. It's a newsletter platform, but so much more now. They have sort of social media aspects. It's kind of a hybrid platform now. So what I noticed right off the bat was that they don't have demographic-based categories for their different newsletters, so
okay.
they have finance, they have politics, they have, all the different ones you'd expect, news, but they don't have demographic ones. So we're talking, no queer category, no BIPOC category, no women, no older folks, no, kind of anything that would kind of help people find their people on the platform. So I decided to create a Substack newsletter that specifically created a directory for people to find each other, for queer people to find each other. And it's really taken off. And the way that I structured it was that rather than me just, spouting and, talking and writing, all the time, I wanted to highlight the work of other people. So, so each week that we publish a newsletter edition is somebody else's work. So I accept submissions from people and I send their work out to the subscriber list of Qstack. And that's kind of what really got me going in that vein. And as a result of that work too, I hooked up with another creator. Her name is Kimberly Warner. Mm-hmm. She's with Unfixed Media, and she has been doing some wonderful, wonderful work with highlighting people on film who have chronic health conditions.
Oh, wow.
And this comes from her own experience as a sufferer with a chronic health condition. She has, I can't remember the name of it, but it's like almost like permanent vertigo.
Oh.
And yeah, which is, I think would be really difficult. So she's got a memoir coming out in September or October, I believe, called Unfixed, which is the name of her company as well. And she and I put together a short film called Unsung. And it's for queer people talking about their lives, their struggles, their triumphs, their hopes and their dreams. And it won an award this year, Our Pride, which was the short film festival connected to World Pride 2025 in Washington, D.C. We got the Innovative Storytellers Award. And so we were very grateful for that. So I want to continue that work and keep putting out, the word on all of the great work that people, Substack and elsewhere are doing. And so, yeah.
Well, you know what?
I lost my train of thought.
No, you're good. You read my mind because I was going to congratulate you on the award for Unsung Queer Portraits of Authenticity and the Cost of Its Absence. And what I want to do is a little bit later in the show, I want to delve even more into your creation of Qstack, how it relates to Lamb, a novel in snapshots, because that's a whole interesting journey. But for right now, my friend, I want us to travel down the corridors of time so we can find out about your backstory, because we here at Wyatt are nosy like that. We'd like to get up in your business. We like to get all up into your business. We like to find out all of the angles and the avenues and all of that stuff so we can know more about you. Is that okay with you?
I would love that. Thank you.
Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Southern California. Where exactly is a little bit of a mystery, because I was actually adopted as a baby, so some of that information is sealed by the state. But I was definitely born in Los Angeles County, and so I was adopted, and we lived in Redondo Beach, California, for the first 7 years. And then we moved to Saudi Arabia.
Let me stop you right there. Before we get into that, I always like to ask my guests this question. What were you like as a little boy, a little nipper? Give us like 3 characteristics that best describe you.
I was an angel.
No.
Yeah,
really right. Listen.
I was adorable.
And I live in Brooklyn, and I have a bridge to sell you right now. Okay, you were an angel. What else?
Yeah, I was a bright little kid with bright blue eyes and blonder hair than I have now, and I think I had lots of girl friends. Let's say I always connected with with the women early on and all through my life. I think a lot more. So yeah, I had lots of little girlfriends, and of course, we were always in love with each other because we were just little kids and didn't know yet what how this was all going to go. And so yeah, an angel, very bright.
I believe that. I believe you were very bright.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Loved butterflies, loved flowers, loved sparkly things.
Yeah, I can believe that too. I like the poo.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, that's good. Oh, anything else you want to add before we move on, Mr. Angel? Is there anything else you'd like to add before we move on, Mr. Angel?
I'm not 1,000% sure. Let's see. Yeah, I liked. Let's just say that I got in trouble a lot for digging around in my mom's jewelry box. I liked sparkly things. I'm telling you.
You see, this is the stuff we want to know about. We want to know about that stuff.
Okay. Well, I got some more. Let's see. I got in trouble a lot for putting on my sister's knee-high red boots. I used to like to lay a towel down my head. Like long hair, share hair, right? Yeah. So I was always kind of, I was always kind of coloring outside the lines as far as gender. Went.
You're making me laugh my ass off. Okay. I had no idea.
I gotta write about that sometime. Share hair with the towel. Yeah.
Yes, you do.
And the red, and the knee-high red boots. God, I love those boots.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, you grew up in the Middle East. That's what we want to talk about now.
My opportunity to wear a dress.
Yeah. Oh, right. Oh my. Yes. Please tell us more. Tell us more.
Yeah. So, well, my dad was, sort of in the aerospace industry, and so he got a job working in Saudi Arabia, kind of military adjacent. We would live, on the dedicated compound for, there would be some military families, but then there'd be a lot of kind of like civilian contractors and so forth. So. I was 7 years old when we went over there. We lived a year on the East Coast, on the Arabian. What do we call it now? The Arabian Gulf or the Persian Gulf? I remember at the time they didn't want us to call it the Persian Gulf. They wanted us to call it the Arabian Gulf because we were in Saudi Arabia, of course.
Right.
So we lived right on the coast there in. A city called Dhahran, and then after a year, we moved to the opposite side of the country, up in the mountains. It was a little town about 7,000 feet, so that's almost 2 miles high, isn't it?
Right.
And that was called Kamis Mushet, and then we lived there for 6 years. Oh. So I was 7 when we went over, and I was 14 when we came back. And, it was a real small school. I think there was only about 100 kids in the whole school. And it was American kids. It was some Canadian kids, British kids, some, kids from Scandinavia, I think. But real small community, very Republican. My parents were very Republican. Oh. And it was military, a lot of military folks. So it was pretty. A lot of people from the Midwest and Texas and environs, and so it was pretty middle of America, really. A little slice of middle America, right in Saudi Arabia. So, wow. So it was, 14. I was sort of just coming into my own when we came back to the States, and so absorbed, I think, a lot of that thinking.
Sure,
I certainly, my parents, I think, certainly expected me to turn out as a Republican, but I'm afraid I had to foil their plans.
Oh, drat.
Yeah. So it was interesting. We missed out on some of the creature comforts. You know what I mean? Like Hershey bars. Anytime I could get my hands on a Hershey bar was a great day. It wasn't we couldn't get all the usual things that you'd find at the grocery store or whatever. And the movies that we got were always like a year behind, so if you were watching
right.
Superman came out in 1977, I think we didn't get to see it until 1978, type of thing, that sort of thing. And TV was 4 hours of programming in the evening.
Oh my.
On a closed cable network, just on the base or whatever. And it was, like 5-year-old reruns of One Life to Live and
oh God.
World Series from last year.
Vicky and Nikki. That was one of my favorite soaps, by the way. Okay.
Oh God, Judith Light, can you remember?
Oh, she was
Karen the hooker.
Listen, man, on the witness stand, that was. You know what? I can always watch that. She was absolutely brilliant, and she won the.
Oh yeah,
and she won the Emmy Award for it. It was just like, wow.
Yeah. She was just on an episode of Poker Face. Did you watch that show?
No.
With Natasha Lyonne. It was just one season, I think it might, or maybe it was two. I think it got canceled, maybe. But it was a fun show, and Judith Light was on it as a countercultural terrorist.
Oh my. Okay. Oh my.
a senior terrorist.
She is versatile. I mean, because when she was on One Life to Live, when she was on that witness stand, she was a prostitute admitting to her nightly activities, and now she's a counter-terrorist. So, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was it was what it was. I think I kind of escaped, I guess. So in Saudi Arabia, children of military families of civilian contractors or whatever, they could not go to school past 9th grade. I think, what we were always told was that it was because the Saudis did not want, sort of like hormonal, sex-crazed American teenagers tempting their men, basically, and so everyone just got sent off to boarding school after 9th grade. And so so there's a legend in my family, actually, that, my sister, after she finished 9th grade, she went off to boarding school. She's about 2-3 years ahead of me. Okay. And so she went off to boarding school. And in that first year, she blossomed, shall we say, and she kind of got that freshman 15 from, going away to school or whatever. So she came back, curvy, busty, red hair, and the legend in the family is that there was a Saudi colonel who used to socialize with the families on the base, and there was talk that he said that he wanted my sister for his third wife.
Oh Lord!
And
oh Lord!
I always thought to myself, you should have taken the deal.
Well,
but anyway.
Okay.
So, yeah. And actually there was now that I think about it, there was a family that lived across the street from us, and their oldest daughter actually did end up marrying a Saudi, and she would come over to visit her parents across the street from us wearing the veil, like black, over her face, head to toe, whatever. I mean, it was very interesting, actually. Very interesting.
Wow.
So, yeah. But I missed, when you're in eighth grade, you're not, at least I wasn't anyway. In eighth grade, you're not quite you're not your eventual sexual self yet. So,
Sure.
so it was kind of a non-issue. All the kids got along for the most part, and since it was such a small community, there was no bullying for the most part. There was no, there were no like, cliques and things like that. And so I kind of grew up with almost a naive point of view. I think of it, and so coming back, we went first after we returned. It was 1983. We went to Washington State.
Oh, okay.
And that was sort of a trial by fire. I had a really, really, really hard time.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
There, I got bullied pretty badly, and not physically, but emotionally, and sort of verbal harassment and stuff like that. So that kind of really jarred me, and
sure it did. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what happened was, my sister went away to school, and then things didn't work out so well with her going, to boarding school, whatever. So we ended up coming back a year early. I should say we came back before I had to go off to boarding school. So I spent ninth grade. We left after I finished eighth grade, and I spent ninth grade up there in Washington State. Mm. And then it was decided that, remembering the part where I was a bright kid, they decided that they were going to give me the opportunity to go to a college prep boarding school. Like I might have gone if we had stayed longer,
right.
over there. And so I, the whole family moved to California, and I went to a boarding school for high school near Santa Barbara. And actually that was the experience that led to, the fictional Walcott Academy in Lamb, the book, where Lamb and his best friend Dee meet each other and have their experiences there. So that was the inspiration for that.
Well, I'm going to fast forward, and I'm going to be your hype man again. Okay, here we go. According to your allauthor.com page, and I quote, Troy's writing explores the joy and pain of queerness through the lens of gay men who struggle in a world that views their lives as other and less than. His themes include love and sex, friendship and family, growing up and bullying, substance abuse, and self-destructiveness, all with a touch of humor to lighten otherwise difficult topics, end quote. Now let's glide into Lamb, a novel in snapshots. And after we do that, I want to move on to Qstack, because that has a relationship with Lamb. So,
yes.
Does that work for you, my friend?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Give us a synopsis of Lamb.
Lamb is the story of the titular character Lamb, whose real name is Willem. He's Dutch American, but they shorten it to Lamb as a taunt, as a nickname, meant to belittle him, but he actually adopts it for his own after high school, and that becomes his name. So Lamb is this great 6'6" tall kid, awkward, gawky, very introverted, very shy in a lot of ways. But in order to sort of break out of that after high school, after college, and getting into his life in the San Francisco Bay Area, he lets somebody give him a mohawk at some point with the Elmer's glue, making it stick straight up, and the Aquanet and everything. And then he just adopts that for his own style. And so he's quite a character with a mohawk. 6'6" with a mohawk probably puts him at over 7 feet, And so his best friend Dee, whose name is never mentioned, he probably will be in a future book, but Dee is sort of his abbot to Lamb's Costello. He's a lot more. a lot more straight-laced to, I'd say more, maybe a little bit more, has a little more common sense. You know what I mean? And so even though they get up to a lot, they drink and they smoke weed and they smoke cigarettes and, they do all the things that, a lot of kids do all the way up and, through their 20s or whatever. But he holds down a job. Dee does. After college, he becomes a stockbroker, and
Wow.
whereas Lamb, who comes from a wealthy family, he becomes a bartender. And so the book is about their friendship. Starts in high school, goes on through their 20s, and then I'm not spoiling anything or giving anything away because in the very first paragraph we find out that basically Lamb dies. In 2003, Dee gets a notice from from their school that Lamb has died. And so the book actually is him reminiscing, like 20 years later, going through Lamb's journals, Lamb's short stories and writing in a box that Lamb left with him before he disappeared and then eventually died. And so it's his reflections on their relationship and the missed opportunities. One of the things that I often think about is, what they call gay years.
Right.
Gay years being, where queer kids very often don't have the opportunity to explore relationships, love, sexuality, and so forth in their youth and their teenage years, the way heterosexual people do. And so they end up doing that in their 20s or even later sometimes, and how it's a completely different experience, doing that when you have adult supervision, doing that when you, are younger and, are able to maybe recover a little bit easier, theoretically, from, heartbreak and so forth. They go through that in their 20s and everything becomes, especially when you add in drugs and alcohol, which is very prevalent in the queer community. It's true.
So true.
Well, everywhere really, but it's a part of life, and it can make things a lot more difficult depending on who you are. So, so it's the story of their friendship. It's the story of growing up, of being bullied in high school, and then the wounds and the scars that you carry with you through your 20s, and what can sometimes happen to somebody who doesn't have the ability to recover or grow out of that, the way some people are able to put that stuff behind them and get on with their lives. Lamb just sort of seems like this ne'er-do-well who isn't able to do that. He's very lovable. Lots of people have come back and said, oh, I have a crush on Lamb. He seems so sweet. I feel so bad for him or whatever. And intentionally, that was my aim, to just show this sort of lovable, messed up boy, basically.
Well, Troy, you are a winsome wordsmith, man, and Lamb is garnering. You like that winsome wordsmith?
Winsome.
I like it too.
I'm not sure what that means. I like it though.
Winsome meaning clever and crafty, and wordsmith is just wonderful. But anyway,
I'll take it.
good, and I won't charge you. Anyway, Lamb, a Novel in Snapshots, it's garnering rave reviews. I want to read two of them in particular that really touched me. Okay, here's the first one. Sure, this is the first one, rather. In this era-defining novel, Ford explores more than the mystery of Lamb. It is a love letter to a friend, a community, a youthfulness gone, a sweet song to relationship in all its joys and heartbreak. And that's from Eleanor and Struther. Hopefully I'm pronouncing Eleanor's last name correctly.
That is correct. She's a good friend of mine on Substack. She's who wrote that blurb for me, and I love her. And she's got a number of books out as well.
Yeah, she's the author of In Judgment of Others. I like that title. Okay. Second review I'm going to read here. Lamb's, and I quote, Lamb struck me as only rare books do. I found myself haunted equally by its joyous celebrations of identity and the elusive nature of loss we all carry with us. That's by Kathleen Clare Waller, author of An Interpreter in Vienna. Those are great
Another, yeah.
reviews. Yeah,
Thank
man.
you. Yeah. Another dear friend, also from Substack. I'll say, Substack has been not just in terms of, having a platform and developing an audience of readers, but also making connections with other writers who are also either, who are either traditionally published or self-published. In Eleanor's case, both. And making those connections, forming those friendships, having those people around you is so invaluable. One of the great aspects of being on Substack, that I've really appreciated.
Before we move more into Qstack, Substack, would you please read a passage from Lamb?
Sure.
And would you set it up first for us, please?
I definitely will. I won't read the introduction to the chapter. I'll just summarize it basically. Rubber and Glue is the name of a short story. So much of the book is written as letters, as journal entries, and as short stories written by Lamb, the character. And so this is one of those short stories. And in the book, this is the only short story that he ever had published. It's not too long, and so I chose it because I think it's a good relatively short segment. So Rubber and Glue, ostensibly written by Willem Broder, the character Lamb. He told me a lot of things. We're all whores. We're all Johns. His theory was that because gay men would have sex with just about anyone, we were in a unique position because the people we want to have sex with are not worried about their reputations or babies. He said it was like a frat party, only all the guests are guys, no girls allowed, so no one was worried about people thinking they were a slut. More than that, he said the beautiful thing was that we paid for sex with sex rather than money, that sex is our currency, and the more we spend, the more we get in return. He said he thought it was unnatural that men should be with women rather than with other men, that it was weird how straight men wanted to be enfolded in all these soft things, the perfume and the makeup and the lace and hair. It was more natural that we should be attracted to people that like the same things we do, cigars, boots, leather, Levi's, beards, and crew cuts. If anything, being attracted to women made a man soft. He'd say, you are what you eat, so don't eat pussy. And that it made more sense to him that women should like other women. He said he had sex with Jim Morrison back in the day, when they were both film students at UCLA before anyone heard of the Doors, that they dropped acid and Jim wanted to try it all. Fucking, sucking, top and bottom, he wanted his mind blown. But when they came down from their trip, Jim left without saying a word, and the next time he saw him walking down the street in Venice, Jim ignored him. He was at the Six Gallery on October 7th, 1955, he said. He was just a kid, and his mom was friends with Jay DeFeo. They both taught art classes for kids in San Francisco, and his mom thought it was bullshit when Jay got fired for shoplifting cans of spray paint. He was the only kid there, hidden in a corner on the floor because his mom couldn't get a babysitter. Everyone was loaded. Jack Kerouac tripped over him at one point and yelled at him, but after Allen Ginsberg read Howl and everyone was hooting and hollering, Jack grabbed him and hugged him, or so he said. He kept telling these scientists at UCSF that he didn't want to be part of their study. He said he was immune to HIV, and the wonks doing research wanted to know why, because he'd never used rubbers, giving or taking dick. But he was still healthy, and that I didn't need to worry about him, that he was probably the safest guy to fuck in all of San Francisco. He taught me how to spike my hair up. He was one of the first punks, he said, and knew one of the guys in the Dead Kennedys. He thought I would look cool with a mohawk, so he sat me down in his kitchen and buzzed my hair on the sides, and then went to work with Aquanet and Elmer's glue. He said I looked super hot. I'll stop it there. It goes on for another 2 pages. I hope that wasn't too racy.
No. Listen, you should read some of the stuff I write, but that's a whole nother story. No, man. That's a whole nother story. Anyway, that is poignant and powerful. Thank you for reading that. See, everybody, you better go out and buy lamb. Okay? Buy it.
Yes, you better. You better.
Right. Okay. Thank you again for that, Troy. Let's put a pin in lamb for a bit because I want to move on to Qstack, which again is the LGBTQIA plus directory, community, and platform that you established on Substack. Now, you wrote this incredible Writer's Digest article recently. It's titled How Substack Helped Me Publish My Novel at 55. And you write about how joining the platform helped you publish Lamb, right? And how
Yes.
how it connected you with other writers. So, but first, what inspired you to establish Qstack? I know you talked about it a little bit earlier, but if you would go into even more detail, I would greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, so so I had mentioned before that there's no category for queers or other demographic kind of categories. So I established Qstack, and that was because I did that because I wasn't finding queer readers for my work, and I knew that was I'm not going to say primarily, but it'd be a good chunk of my eventual audience. My hope was establish the platform and then publish books, which so far I've written 2. They've both been contemporary queer coming of age. On Amazon, I've been shunted into the LGBTQ plus literary fiction category, which is fine with me. But I knew that a good proportion of my audience was going to be queer, and I wasn't finding people on Substack. It was really strange. And when I started doing keywords, when I started typing in keywords and searching, for other Substacks that would have people that I could follow, that I could subscribe to, or could subscribe to me, that I could collaborate on projects with, and so forth. I wasn't finding anybody. It was very strange. Like, you'd get a handful, but then you'd also get a bunch that were maybe defunct. People hadn't been publishing more recently, or you would even find, type in queer or type in LGBTQ, and you would find anti Substacks, against, our community, and which, they exist on every platform. There's just no getting around it, and we know how to handle those sorts of people. But so I was like, okay, we need a place. I need a place, to find, to bring together people who would maybe want to read my books. Maybe I want to read their books. We could work on do podcasts together, or we could guest post on each other's Substacks and reach other people and so forth. So I put it together last year. I started it around February. I think officially February was when I decided that it wasn't going to be just a section of my own Substack, Ford Knows Books, but that it was going to be its own newsletter, separate. And so I grabbed the name, I set it up, and I started just physically, kind of going through and finding other people that I could add to this directory, and so that they would see their names, they would see their neighbors, they would see, the people in our community on Substack. And so June 1st, Pride Month, was the sort of official launch of Qstack last year, and I did a bunch of guest posts from people that submitted work. There was an excerpt from a novel by Gail Marlene Schwartz called "Falling Through the Night," which she's become a really good friend, and is also featured in the film, actually, unsung. And I've featured many books, actually, that people have published, who either either first serialized things on Substack and then published it, or just published it traditionally from the get-go. There is a queer, actually a lesbian reimagining of Little Women called The Other March Sisters.
Wow, interesting. Yeah.
By Linda Epstein and two co-authors. And then recently we featured a memoir by a writer named River Selby. And they just had their memoir Hot Shot, which is about being a first line firefighter as a woman in a very, very male dominated industry. Not industry. It's not an industry. It's it's
profession.
Profession. Sure. And so there have been a number of us as much as possible. I especially when I see that somebody who has a Substack newsletter is putting out a book, I try and sort of reach out to them and let them know that I have the platform, including yourself. At some point, I would love to feature an excerpt from one of your books.
Definitely.
On Substack, on Qstack. So I'm just doing that work as much as possible. I've written only one or two of the, I'm not sure how many we've put out now. It's been over a year, but probably 60 or more different creators and writers have been featured in the editions of Qstack. And I've only written, introductions and, news and announcements and things like that for the most part. I take a step back and let other people shine. I've got my own newsletter, Ford Knows Books, to talk about my stuff, so I feature myself very, very judiciously and want other people to shine. So.
Man, we really appreciate you. This Qstack is so needed. Most of us, I believe anyway, are indie authors, and we need, first of all, validation, within our community. And we also need as much exposure as possible. I want to chat a little bit about Lamb's fascinating journey on Substack. So talk to us about that.
So it was funny because I waited. It was very slow going at first. I started from scratch. I had zero subscribers when I first started, and it was slow coming up in January 2023. And it took a while to kind of meet people and start building that up. But some of the people that I was following, Eleanor Anstruther was one of them, who were serializing novels. And I just thought that's wonderful. I'd actually heard of people serializing novels on Medium, the platform Medium. And also, strangely enough, I've actually heard of some writers even joining OnlyFans. If you can imagine,
Really?
because OnlyFans started out not as like a sort of like a sex work or whatever it is, sort of platform, but started out as more of a Patreon or one of those, And so, but I heard about some artists and some writers who actually were joining, these platforms. And then of course you have Vellum, for example, I think was the serial subscription service I think that Amazon had, and there's many other ones, Radish, and the one that the big one is escaping me at the moment. But anyway, so serialization, I just thought, they were putting their work out there and they were getting reads. Maybe not a lot of reads, you know what I mean? Maybe it wasn't, maybe it wasn't catching fire. Maybe it wasn't, rocket fuel or whatever.
Right.
But they were getting feedback. They were getting viewers. They were getting support for this endeavor that they were putting their work out there in serial form. So chapter by chapter each week. And so I decided at one point I wanted to write. I had written one novel. It remains unpublished at this point. It was called Waterspout. And I tried to go the traditional route, and I got no's from 60 different agents. I might take another pass at that, or I might actually kind of weave it into the Lamb universe at some point. But
Right.
I decided to write a new book for the serial, specifically for the serial, and with the specific intention to self-publish it when it was done.
Right.
Because, of course, my understanding, generally speaking, is that when you self-publish something in whatever form, whether it's, on Amazon through KDP or through, even through a newsletter, for example, or on Substack, that agents won't take that up.
Generally, they will not touch it. Yeah.
Yeah, they won't touch it. There's a wrinkle in that, which I'll get to in a moment, maybe. But so I decided to go ahead and start writing a new book that I would serialize on Substack, and that I would then self-publish at the end of it. And that was the beginning of Lamb. And I think I had started writing another book, which kind of led me to Lamb. I got maybe 30, 40 pages into it. It started getting really messy, and it got, very convoluted very quickly. And I just, it just sort of collapsed under its own weight. But it did give me the idea of a story that begins at a all boys boarding school on the California coast near Santa Barbara. Of course, my boarding school actually was co-ed, but for the story, I made it an all boys school, because I knew that bullying would be a major theme of it. And so, even though there was bullying at my co-ed school, it goes a bit further. I think in its fictional form, it goes a bit further in the all boys school that I created as a fictional representation of that. So it was. I wrote it as I went. Most people try and write it ahead of time, and then slowly, just sort of release the chapters or whatever. I was writing it as I went. And so that's how I came up with the idea of a novel in snapshots, because it's not linear. It kind of goes back and forth between their time at boarding school and their time in their 20s, back and forth, and, sort of weaving this portrait and this life of these two characters together. And it was easier to do it that way, so that each, chapter that I wrote and released as I was going along, was kind of standalone, So you could almost imagine this is a book of short stories, but with just the same characters. But in the end, it is a novel, and it does have a linear arc, even though it is, sort of in kind of small cells, so to speak. So, so I did that for 1 year. I didn't do it every week. I released every 2 weeks. It just took me that long to kind of get the stories written and edited. And I still think that it worked out okay. A lot of people are very adamant that you really need to keep your readers engaged, and you need to do this every week, and like clockwork, and don't disappoint them and stuff like that. But I was like, I think they're going to stay with me, and I think they're going to, fall in love with these characters, and in particular with Lamb, and that they'll stick with me. And they did, all through the year that it took me to finish the serialization. And when I finished it, it was at 35,000 words, let's say. Just not novel length. That's a novella. If you look at the word count, sort of categories of different books and so forth. So at that point then, that was in November of last year. At that point, I decided I'm going to spend a month, and I'm going to write a new story written by Lamb. And that became The Fire Road, 15,000 additional words. So it was about, a third again, a little more than a third again of the length to make it officially novel length. And so The Fire Road became a story written by Lamb about, sort of mirrored characters. You've got, in the main story, you've got Lamb and you've got Dee. And in the Fire Road, you've got Mark and you've got Matt. But then some of the same characters from the main story also appear in the short story because, Lamb lived through that and he took some real people from his life and put them into his short story, kind of the same way I did, actually. Some of this is autobiographical. And so I created that and made that bonus material that I released when I published it on Amazon and also through Ingram Spark. And so that came out to 15,000 words. And then people who had read the serial then got to see some new material and a new story when they bought the book. So I was very pleased, and I think it weaved together, sort of the story within a story, kind of wove together many of the same themes and many of the same feelings, and the emotional arc of the original story. So I was very happy with the way that turned out.
That was very clever of you. Would you, Troy, release another novel on Substack?
That's a great question. I'm not sure. My intention at this point is not to do another serial on Substack. I believe that the next step in my career is to build on Substack, but go out beyond it. I call Substack a writer incubator, and I think for that purpose and for the experience and for the connections and the friends really that I've developed there, it's invaluable. But there is a point at which you kind of want to kind of stretch yourself a bit, and I think the next step for me is to also start publishing maybe some short stories, definitely articles. The Writer's Digest story was sort of me stepping out from behind the shield of Substack, and so I think what I probably maybe would do, or at least the intention right now, is I'm working on the next novel. I decided to continue the story, and this time to tell the story of the life of the narrator D 20 years later, after the events of the first book. And so then we're going to get a chance to get to know D a little bit better, and in 20 years after the original events. And so what I might do is release 3 chapters, for free on Substack when it's ready to go. And maybe I'll do that also for a subsequent book as well, and because I it's a lot of work. I'll say that it's a lot of work, and you really have to. I'm not writing this with the episodic nature of serialization in mind at this point. So with Lamb, for example, all of the chapters were within, were like that. You'll see that there's short chapters, 4 or 5 pages tops, about 2,000 words. That's kind of the maximum that I wanted to, sort of subject people to each week. But the new book that I'm writing, much more linear, kind of more of a traditional structure, and I'm not sticking to 2,000 words. I'm not sure how I would break up some of these chapters. Of course, I'm only on the rough draft at the moment, so I'm not sure what it's going to look like in the end. But I think it might be a lot more difficult to chop it up the way it would probably need to be if I did a serial again. So, yeah. Oh, I definitely think doing it once was great. Doing it more times, I'm not sure. We'll see.
Well, being a winsome wordsmith, you're going to knock the second one right out of the park.
I hope so.
You will. Okay, Lamb, a Novel in Snapshots. Give us some key takeaways.
Some key takeaways. I would say, let me think. Key takeaways. I guess the thing, it's very much of a character-driven novel.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're getting is a very intense and very honest view of a young man who is not especially happy.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say, he grew up with privilege, but not happily, with parents who divorced, and it was in a lot of ways sort of disowned from his family. He was something like an orphan, from a relatively young age, sent off to boarding school. And so, although he had all those privileges, and in fact, he continues to receive an allowance from both of his parents, even though they're divorced. Both of his parents, send him an allowance, and he's able to kind of just, coast.
Right.
And this shows you how that's not necessarily a good thing. His best friend, D, much more level-headed, has to work for it, has student loans, from college, and has to get a real and proper job after college, and become an earning adult.
Mm-hmm.
And Lamb doesn't have to do that. And so you kind of see. I'm not saying this isn't, I guess it is actually. I guess it is a sort of a poor little rich boy kind of story, but it also, to a great extent, it really shows you the damage that is done, not only by that kind of family structure, but also then by the bullying and the sort of the alpha male, toxic masculinity, environment that especially in the 80s when it begins. This book, roughly mirror in age, is roughly my era. I graduated from high school in 1987.
Okay.
And I have them, I think the same year, or maybe the year after they graduate, and so they're the same age as me. They grew up 80s, 90s, and when we look at, 1987, we weren't even 20 years past Stonewall in 1987.
True.
So there was
very true. Yeah.
Still a lot of, really difficult. And there is still to this day, I remember this woman, this girl that I went to boarding school with. She was always very nice. We ran in together a few years later in San Francisco, and she said to me, oh my gosh, when I went to high school, or when I went to college, she said, I had a lesbian roommate.
Yeah.
And she said she went back because her mother actually was, a teacher at the school. She went back to the school to be with her mother, holidays and so forth. And all the people at the school that we went to, knew that she had a lesbian roommate at college. And they all said, oh my God, how awful for you. How difficult that must be. Oh my God, did you ask for a new different roommate? Da, 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 da. I mean, this is what I came up through, at that school, and what Lamb and Dee did as well. So,
wow.
It's difficult. There are kids today, very supportive families, very supportive communities. God love them. I would wish that for everybody, but there are still people in the world who, in the U.S. and in the world, who do not have that experience still. Yeah. And those are the people that I really, really feel for a lot of the time. I really just feel, I know that feeling, and they're feeling it and worse in many instances. So I felt this was an important story to tell.
It is.
For people like that, who experience that, and to let them know that, you are seen, and people care, even if you feel, like They don't. So
where can we purchase our copies of Lamb, a Novel in Snapshots?
Amazon, bookshop.org,
Okay.
Barnes and Noble. Currently, the ebook is only available on Amazon at the moment. And you can actually find links to all of those on my website, troyfordauthor.com. Or you can also find links on my Substack, troyford.substack.com.
Okay, what about your Instagram, your Facebook?
Some of them are just a lot of them are Mr. Troy Ford Author or Troy Ford Author. I didn't keep them consistent. Should have. But they didn't. I know. But yeah, so, and actually, if you just Google my name, Troy Ford, now it used to be that when you Google my name, Ford dealerships in either Ohio or New York would pop up. But now when you Google my name, Troy Ford, I pop up. So I'm doing something right, I suppose. I've got the algorithm in my favor.
Yes, you are doing a lot right. Mr. Troy Ford, thank you for stopping by. Wyatt, man, this has been exciting. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you, Wyatt. You are just a delight and just so full of light and energy, and I adore you.
You know what? You're the best, better than all the rest.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
So much.
Thank you.
All right, you take care.
Yeah. So y'all, there you have it. You can find the official Wyatt podcast page at wyattevans.com, the go-to destination for LGBTQ plus news, features, commentary, and entertainment. Wyattevans.com is visited by more than 100 countries on the regular. All I can say to that is, hey, baby. And at wyattevans.com, you'll find my smoking hot, HAWT hot, Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels. And as you just saw on the top, the newest installment is called Shattered. I said Shattered. And y'all, Shattered is full of action, danger, intrigue, sexually charged situations, passion, and all of the wonderful elements that you're used to in the Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels. So get your new copy of Shattered. Now you can follow me, your host, Wyatt O'Brien Evans, all across social media, and poof is right there for you to peruse, like TikTok and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And if you have any comments or whatever, you can hit me up at wyattonair@gmail.com. So until next time, y'all, woof, goddammit, woof, 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 woof. I said woof.